Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the second day of the 2024 Animas and San Juan Watersheds Conference. My name is Mark Sheely from the New Mexico Water Resources Research Institute, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all here. We'll get right into our morning program today. We have a great bunch of speakers who are going to see us through the morning program. And I would like to first welcome our keynote speaker, Justin Paiochi. He's the owner and executive chef of Paiochi Food Group. At an early age, his first experience of amazing food came from his grandmother, Lorene. With a simple piece of hot fry bread and pea soup made from fresh produce planted in her garden, he was hooked. During his senior year in high school, he placed third at a national competition for cooking and went on to become a proud graduate of the Arizona Culinary Institute in Scottsdale, Arizona. Sorry, just lost my place here. With many mentors that include executive chef Bo McMillan of Sanctuary on Camelback in Paradise Valley, Kevin Blinkley of Blinkley's, Chef Brandon Gauthier of Confluence of Cave Creek, and Chef Ryan Pitt of Josephine in downtown Phoenix. Justin feels that he's learned from some of the best, possessing a passion to continue to grow along with his respect for his people's history. He aims to learn as much as possible while maturing and developing his own style of cooking. Navajo food is definitely more than survival to him. It is the essence for healing, beauty, and humility. I also want to mention that Paiochi Food Group was a finalist for the 2023 James Beard Award, Best of the Southwest. And they also provided the lunches for our pre-conference field trip on Tuesday, which were phenomenal. So I just want to say thank you, Justin, and welcome to the conference.
Ja, Justin Paiochi nishe ashi hineshle petani bashiching kini ani dashe che torichini dashe nale. My name is Justin Paiochi. I am a not saltwater, what the heck? I'm sorry. I've been talking like all weekend over in Chicago, so like my words are kind of a little bit muddled, but I am a Salt Clan Navajo, born for the Folded Arms people. And yeah, I'm super glad to be here. Thank you everybody for coming out. So I want to talk about the topic that I was speaking on when I was out in Chicago was civic leadership. And civic leadership is basically like a hero, like to certain parts of your organization or your area, basically. And so I feel that it's my duty now, having a voice in my community, to be able to present different topics and different bring into light like what we need to work on in our communities and whatnot. So on the Navajo reservation, I feel like we have a lot more hoops and hurdles to jump through, because when I was talking with a lot of people out in the city, they don't understand like our problems that we have to talk about over here on the reservation, because we're not only dealing with just like the federal government, where we have to go through the federal government first, and then we have to go through the BIA, and then we have to go through the Navajo Nation as well. So I always make it a point to point out that I can't really talk too much about like everybody else's problems, but like I do know a little bit about the Navajo Nation and everything that we have to talk about. And so it's really adamant that we keep supporting our people, and especially like the local farmers and all the above, because without them, like we don't have any food. I really love being able to have a voice in my community now, because there's so much work to be done, basically, and I'm super grateful to have met people like Gloria Lane right here. She's one of my mentors as well. She's taught me a lot about water rights, land rights, food rights, and even native rights as well. And Bree as well, she's doing a lot of really great work. My sister Tia, she's walking out the door right now, but um, she keeps me going and keeps me on pace basically. And I just love, I feel like once I got involved with farming, my passion for food has come like full circle now, because now we're not only just like, I don't just buy food. I get to plant it. I get to harvest it. I get to teach students about like the whole process. I get to preserve the food. And then also seed saving, that's really important for our community as well. And Gloria and Harry have taught me the importance of keeping these seeds, because they have like, what is it, 6 generations now of seed saving, or 4? 4? Okay, so it's 4. I was exaggerating a little bit, but she's really adamant about like, so you see a corn, the whole plant and whatnot. They don't take anything that has like dents inside of it, or like it's kind of like crazy looking and whatnot. Everything she saves is in a straight line, and everything has no dents inside of it. That's what she saves for seeding for the next season, which is like, it blew my mind, because I was like, wow, they're really paying attention to like how important it is to like not just save like different types of seeds and whatnot. Like they're really actually paying attention to the details and all the above. And so when we do like our nishiji or our steamed corn, they only use cedar and they only use white corn, which is super cool to me, because like everything makes sense on the farm. And so I feel like there's so much to talk about. I'm trying to like pace myself here in a little bit, but yeah, I just love food basically, and I get to learn from some of the best people in the country, even our community, and I feel like I wasn't raised traditionally, so me taking a step back and learning about my culture, our history, I'm going back, but I'm also going forward at the same time. So like I'm getting stretched out in like in different areas, and it's been mind blowing like how much I did not know, and how much I'm actually being able to grow as a person, as a chef, as a farmer, and it's super cool. Like I love my life. I love farming. I love producing, and it's been a big journey so far, and I don't know how far to go forward with what's the word I'm trying to say? It's just so cool. Like I love food so much. So sorry. Anybody have any questions that I can answer? No, it's actually on the Navajo reservation out in the Ninahanzad out there. And so Gloria Lane, she's right here. She's my boss, basically. She's the one who's been teaching me a lot about like farming and like preserving foods and stuff like that. And Yeah, it's over not too far from here. Anybody else? No? So we get our water through the BIA. Sometimes the water gets shut off because when it starts raining up in the Colorado area, a lot of that water gets shoved down to our area and it brings a lot of soot. And so when that soot dries, it turns into like concrete. And so we have to turn the water off here and there. And it makes things a little bit more difficult because one day our water will be on and then the next day it will be off for 2 weeks at a time sometimes. And it's a struggle, but we still make do with what we can. You know what I mean? Anybody else? Yeah. So we always are adamant about planting 3 different kinds of corn. So we have white for male ceremonies, we do yellow for women's ceremonies, and then also blue for consumption. But we only use white corn for steaming the corn. Uh, Gloria will have like 9 different types of melons sometimes, and then we'll have like 3 different types of chilies. That's most of what we try to get on the farm every year. But yeah, at one point I had like 50 different types of plants on like one little piece of I think it was like 500 feet by 100 feet little plot that I had. I was able to play with. So I had like 5 different types of beets. I had, I don't know how many types of chilies. I had different types of beans. I had all kinds of different stuff like that. And unfortunately, out on the farm, there's wild amaranth that grows out there, and it kind of grows like a weed, and the sunflowers as well too. They just start growing up and they start taking over the land, and they take all the nutrients from the farm basically, and so we don't like sunflowers too much, but I'll still use them like in making salads and stuff like that, and so try to utilize them as much as possible. Yes, sir.
Does the quality of the water that you use in your cooking, is that affected by the chemicals in the water? That's my question one. Number two is that during the gold mine spill,
Hmm.
I know that there were a lot of the farmers along the river that were not using that water, and some of them also decided to go ahead and use the water anyway. But when it came to the fall time, there was always a question as to where the product came from. Did it come from the area where the gold mine water was utilized? If it was, then there was some hesitation as to whether or not to eat that food or not. So that's just an effect of the contamination. So there was some concern there that
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I wasn't on the farm during that time when the the mine, excuse me, the mine spill came. Gloria has a lot more information on that because she was there firsthand, and Bree, you was there too, right? No? Oh. Well, Gloria was there firsthand, and we had one of our good friends, Bonnie Byers. She would haul water, like good water, for our area, and yeah, I wasn't there for during that time, so I can't really speak too much on that. But I do know that it had a big effect on everybody in our area because that water was like really bad for a good amount of time, and had I been there, I would have probably tried my best to like do what I can to help our farmers in our area. But yeah, I wasn't there during that time. But I know it was really bad for everybody, especially down towards our area. Yes, sir.
This is a little bit off topic, but I was wondering, when you went down your career path, like at the start, did you know you wanted to bring your like Navajo tradition and culture into cooking, or is that something that happened as you kind of transitioned forward?
Yeah, so like I was saying, I'm kind of taking a step back, learning about my culture and my people and my food and our history and whatnot. So I'm going back, but I'm also going forward at the same time. So like I'm getting stretched out like in two different ways. I have total respect for everything that my people have gone through. It's a really sad story, but we're still here, you know what I mean? And we're still learning, we're still striving. I guess my story is basically taking what I have learned and then trying to showcase it in a more modern, upscale setting. We like to say that we're not changing our recipes so much. We try to stay true to them, but we like to play around with like how it's plated and perceived in like a more upscale setting, like we say. And so like when I get to teach students about different types of food, we have a dish called squash 9 ways. And so I'll plate squash 9 different ways on one plate, mostly because I want to teach the students that food can be healthy, but it can look really cool and taste freaking phenomenal at the same time. So I'll take like pucks and I'll roast them and then baste them with like honey on top of it or whatever. And then I'll make like a puree. We'll take the seeds, we'll toast them, crush them up for more like a crunch factor. We'll take ribbons that are raw. We'll take ribbons as well and pickle them. Even the guts, I like to call them, like the little like I don't even know what it's really the proper name for it. Like the inside of the squash area, we'll marinate that with like some lemon and salt and pepper and whatnot. Plate that as well. I'll even take a whole squash and then put it in the fire and like roast the crap out of it, and then take the outside of it and like that's really burnt and crush that and mix it with salt and use that as a finishing salt on top of the dish and whatnot. And then I'll juice it. I'll make like a powder out of it and whatever. So whenever the students get to like taste it after they're done plating it, they're just, their minds are blown, because most of the time I feel like a lot of their introduction into squash is just like thrown into a pot of boiling water and it turns into like mush. But when they get to see like different aspects of like how squash can be perceived, they're blown away, and it's still really healthy for them as well, and it gets them interested in like eating good food from the startup, you know what I mean? And they can actually grow them and whatnot. And so I try my best to make sure that I keep things interesting, especially for the students, because I want them. I take a note from one of Tupac's quotes. If I can spark the mind of at least one student to take on the role of agriculture, I think I've done my job. Because there's a lot of land out here that's not being used, it's being underused. There's a lot of water that's not being used as well. I think last time I checked, we're only using 30% of the water that's being allocated throughout the Navajo reservation. And I think 15% of the land on the Navajo reservation is only being used for agriculture or something like that. So it might be a little bit more, a little bit less, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Can you elaborate on how you include honoring traditional Navajo foods into Irish food?
Yeah. So let's see, how am I going to go with this? So our food, it's really special to me. I love our history. I love our culture. I love everything that I'm learning. And I really want to showcase our stories throughout our journey, especially if you ever get to attend one of our dining experiences, because it's called La Rami. Excuse me. So we have a 9-course dining experience called La Rami, and we like to highlight a lot of different Navajo foods on the menu. Like I said before, like we don't change the recipes so much, but we do like to highlight different stories throughout the whole message, basically. And so, like, if we do something with fry bread or whatnot, we'll tell the story of like how fry bread came about, which is actually really sad because through the long walk and all the above, it's really sad. So I'll give a quick story real quick. So from what I've learned, like fry bread, we'll tell this story. During the long walk, we were given different types of food like flour, refined flour, sugar, different types of fat, and all the above. But there was a lot of Navajos who didn't know what to do with the flour because we didn't have that before. And so they would mix it with water, and then they would end up drinking it. And then a lot of it turned into dysentery because it wasn't like a really good product back in the day. But also it turned into clay in a lot of our elders' stomachs. And so they got really sick and they ended up dying. But somebody got smart along the way and then put hot oil, and then put the dough inside of there, and then hence fry bread. But like Tio was asking, these are some of the things that we try to highlight during our dinners and whatnot, and we feel that it's our responsibility to pass these stories on basically to like our patrons and the people that we're serving, because it happened and it's real, you know what I mean? We try not to sugarcoat too many different stories because we're still here. We're still striving. We're still planning. We're still harvesting. We're still passing on stories. And I'm really proud to say that my team and I, my mom and my sister, they're really great at what they do, keeping me on track, and it's been a journey so far, and I look forward to keep learning about our history and our culture and learning from my elders, basically. So, yeah. I don't know if that answered your question. Anybody else? Okay. But yeah, thank you very much for having us. We really appreciate you. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and we also have a website as well. If you guys need food in any way, like catering or private dining, all the above, we hope to serve you at one of our fine dining experiences called Lorraine. We also have a food trailer that we vend out of, and we try to be as present as possible over at the farm at Navajo Ethno Agriculture down in Ninahanzad. But yeah, thank you very much for having us. I appreciate you all.
So while we're changing over our AV for our next presenter, I'll introduce them right now. So I'd like to welcome Bart Deming. Bart Deming is the construction engineer and manager of Reclamation's Four Corners Construction Office in Farmington, New Mexico. He's also the chair for the federal team implementing the Navajo San Juan Indian Water Rights Settlement. Since 2012, Bart has been fully involved in helping design, construct, and manage the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project, a cornerstone of the Navajo San Juan Indian Rights Settlement in New Mexico. Prior to his work with Reclamation, Bart spent the first 15 years of his career as a civil engineer and project manager for private consulting firms designing and constructing municipal and industrial water systems, transportation, and urban renewal projects. As soon as we get our projection and AV figured out, we'll hear from Bart.
Thank you, Mark. Well, good morning. Yate bene. Appreciate the invite to speak to you. This is something I'm incredibly passionate about, the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project. So going to be sharing with you today a little background behind the project, why we're building this project, what it was intended to do, where we currently are status-wise, and then how we've been able to incorporate the water conveyance system that was associated with P&M's San Juan Generating Station into the project. So got some cool updates for you today for anyone who's been following the project. So in terms of Indian water rights settlements, there's a lot of work that goes into getting these into place. A lot of negotiations, a lot of work from Navajo Nation. The United States is also involved, state of New Mexico. But that's just the beginning. It takes years to get to that point. Once all the parties agree to what water rights should go to a tribe, in this case the Navajo, we have the settlement signing ceremonies, but then the real work with implementing these starts. And we've been doing this for well over a decade, and we've still got, as I'll show you, another 5-6 years worth of work to do. So building these projects takes a lot of resources and a lot of time from people, but it's incredibly rewarding what this project is going to do in the lives it will change and improve, especially on the Navajo Nation. So in terms of the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project, it's the cornerstone of the Navajo's water rights settlement on the San Juan River in New Mexico. As you've probably heard recently, the Navajo Nation is also working to settle its water rights in Arizona. This is for the bulk of their water rights in New Mexico. At the time, it was one of the largest Indian water rights settlements in U.S. history. It's still the largest in New Mexico. The Bureau of Reclamation is charged with designing and constructing the project. So we have a lot of partners, and I'll go over some details there, but ultimately, the Bureau of Reclamation within the Department of Interior is responsible for delivering this project to the Navajo Nation. So a little bit of background, and with this group here, I know you're all pretty familiar with what living conditions are like on the Navajo Nation. Bree talked about some of this in her previous presentation. 40% of people living on the Navajo Reservation still have to haul drinking water to their homes. Something that we take for granted here in this building, in a lot of our homes, just having water at the tap is not available to many Navajo families. So that is something that this project will help change. But where there is drinking water in communities, and this is really within the communities, folks that live outside of the community really don't have these resources. But ones that do live in the communities, a lot of them do have drinking water, but it's poor quality. It comes from groundwater. It's contaminated with arsenic and other hazardous elements. And it's not sustainable. We're seeing with the drought that's been going on for nearly 25 years now, groundwater supplies continue to dwindle as we continue to mine that groundwater, and it's not getting replenished by the climate. So this project will provide a more reliable and sustainable drinking water source. So this project was intended to provide a major infrastructure, a long-term water supply for the Navajo Nation, specifically the eastern portion of the Navajo Nation in New Mexico, the southwest portion of the Hickory Apache Nation around TP Junction. As you're driving to Albuquerque, you go through TP Junction. They will also be and are receiving water from the project. The city of Gallup's also a prime partner and will be receiving water from this project as well. It's designed to meet the current needs of the population, but it's also designed for population growth and expansion that will occur in the hope that if we build it, they will come. And what I'm talking about is a lot of Navajo people have had to leave the reservation because of lack of jobs. So the hope is that by having a water supply as well as a better electrical power grid, that there'll be the opportunity to create jobs, build homes, and build opportunities for the Navajo people. So it includes growth rates for the next 40 plus years. We're anticipating this project will be able to deliver water without any need to supplement it for maybe 80 to 100 years, because the Navajo Nation the Navajo people are so good at conserving water. So this water will go a long ways, I think more than what it was originally intended by the founders. And then our project partners, the Navajo Nation, we work very closely with, the Hickory Apache Nation, City of Gallup, like I mentioned, and then the state of Mexico all help us build this project. So in the area in red on the map there, this is the project service area. As you can see, there's a small area, the Window Rock area in Arizona, that will also get water from this project, but primarily this is a project for the Navajo Nation in New Mexico. The Navajo Nation obviously is working with the state of Arizona to get their water in Arizona as we speak too. But there's a lot of challenges with building this project. And as you can see on the map here, we like to share this with folks that aren't familiar with the Navajo Nation. The size of this project service area is the size of the state of New Jersey. So it's 7,800 square miles. There's a lot of challenges with building a water infrastructure across the vast land on the Navajo Nation. So I'll be talking to you a little bit more about that. Here's some project details. On the map there is the Navajo Gap Water Supply Project. It's broken into two separate laterals, so two separate water systems that operate independently of each other. The cutter lateral on the right side of the screen there, it's basically runs down the Highway 550 corridor. Will deliver water almost to the edge of Cuba, down to the Navajo communities in Pueblo Pintado and Torreon, Ojo Encino. That portion of the project is complete, and I'll go over that in a little bit more detail. It's this part of the project is designed to supply a population of around 50,000. Currently, we're supplying water to about 6,000 people, so there's a lot of room to expand. The pipe diameter that comes out of Cutter Reservoir, and this portion of the project gets water directly out of Navajo Reservoir. It comes through the Navajo Indian Irrigation Projects, the Nappy Farms water system. and then we divert off of that, and that's what supplies the cutter lateral. It's 24 inches in diameter, and this being the smaller of the two laterals, this is where we started the project, as opposed to the San Juan lateral on the other side of the screen. That's where a lot of our current efforts are. If you've been driving between Shiprock and Gallup, you've seen the pipeline, as well as driving between Yate Junction and Window Rock. The pipeline's also on the north side of the highway there. So a lot of work's going on there. That portion of the project has a 42-inch diameter pipeline, especially up where we divert from the river. It does neck down as we deliver water to communities, and the pipe diameter gets smaller as it gets to Gallup. But it's a much bigger portion of the project. It's designed to supply a population of at least 200,000 people, as well as all that economic growth and development that I mentioned. So there's two water treatment plants. There's a water treatment plant associated with each side of the project. 300 miles of transmission pipeline, and that is just the portion that the Bureau of Reclamation is building. That's just the supply side of the pipeline. That doesn't count for all the community connections and the distribution systems that will be getting water from this project. There's 19 pumping plants, and then there's numerous storage tanks that's necessary to deliver the water. Reclamation began construction in 2012 down on Reach 12A around the Twin Lakes area. We started there. We also started on the cutter lateral shortly thereafter. The goal being, was starting down there, that we could, as pipe got into the ground, we could start delivering groundwater to communities, not have to wait for the water treatment plants to be done and the water diversion systems to be installed. Our deadline for completion under current law is 2024. We're in the process of working with the settlement parties to get that extended to 2029, and I'll go over the main reason for that here shortly. As I mentioned, Reclamation has responsibility for the project, but it's kind of an all-hands-on-deck approach. We work with the Navajo Nation to help build part of the project. The City of Gallup's building a portion of the project. The Hickory Apache Nation as well, Indian Health Service. So it takes a lot of partners to build this project. It's massive. It's over a $2 billion project. On the portion that Reclamation is building, we will retain title, but we also have the ability to transfer title to the Navajo Nation should they request it at the end of the project. And then NTUA, the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, is going to be operating and maintaining the project. So this is drinking water. The Navajo Nation had made a decision for this to be a drinking water project and not necessarily an agricultural project. It's not to say the water can't be used for agriculture and livestock. It's just because it's treated, it's much more expensive to use for those needs. So it's municipal, domestic, industrial, and commercial. The Navajo's water comes from the settlement, and that's nearly 80% of the water on the project, which is about 29,000 acre feet. So it's quite a bit of water for the Navajo Nation that, like I said, it should be able to be a water source for the nation for the next 100 years or so before it would need to be supplemented. The water for the other beneficiaries, the Hickory Apache Nation, City of Gallup, their water comes from the Hickory Apache Nation's water rights. They're leasing their water to the City of Gallup. As far as how the project is being built, we started, like I mentioned, where we could get water into communities with groundwater that's available, tying it to the pipeline. And then building from south to north towards the river, which is where we're diverting the water. And I'll go into that here in a little more detail. And that enables, like I mentioned, to get water into communities much quicker than it would take to get water if we were waiting on the completion of the project. So in 2018, Public Service Company in New Mexico approached that they'd been selling power to in California, did not want to pay for coal-fired power anymore, and PNM had made the decision to shut down the San Juan generating station, I think as everybody knows. Came to us and said, hey, we're going to shut this down, but we don't want to see the water system that we built for it, namely Frank G. Willetta Reservoir that we just recently renamed. We don't want to see that go to waste. So we see you guys are building a water project. We think we could partner with you to sell it to you. So we took basically a no stone unturned approach. We were very excited about the opportunity, but it also created a lot of challenges for us. We were in the process of building a river intake or designing a river intake. We didn't build it yet. Down to the Hogback diversion, where the Navajo Nation diverts water for irrigation, and had to take a step back and say, hey, this is an incredible opportunity. We were going to be diverting water directly off the river without any storage. And if you just look at all the communities along the San Juan River, as well as the Animas River, every one of them has a storage reservoir. And the reason for that is that, and the folks from USGS have talked about this, is there's a lot of sediment in the water, especially during monsoon events, during runoff, and it's important to have a more consistent water supply. If we were pulling that water directly out of the river without a reservoir, without the settling that comes from a reservoir, we would be having to mechanically remove that and then relying on that mechanical system during operations. So it would have been a risky proposition that there could have been times when the system would have went down because the equipment went down and we would not be able to deliver water. So we soon discovered that from an engineering standpoint, this was a great opportunity for us. The question was, what is the water quality like in Frank G. Willetta Reservoir? And so we took on a 4-year study with the help of USGS, with Jeb Brown, Johanna Blake. They were huge in helping us do additional studies. We had Public Service Company in New Mexico had already done a bunch of water studies just for monitoring the reservoir and monitoring their diversion off the river, because they had been diverting water off the river and using it for cooling water, similar to what Arizona Public Service is doing with the APS Four Corners Power Plant. The difference is Morgan Lake, the water's recirculated back through the power plant. In the case of San Juan Generating Station, the water was a separate off-stream source and just pumped into the plant and was not interchanged back into the reservoir. So what we found was it was a very clean water source, fortunately. We looked at San Juan River water quality because that's how the water's diverted off the river. That's the water source predominantly in the reservoir. We took on our own 4-year study. As I mentioned, over 30,000 measurements were taken. USGS went out and you can see in the photo there, they collected bed cores. We were concerned with that plant operating for 50 years that that reservoir could have been contaminated by the plant itself. Even if the water was good coming from the river, that the plant could have contaminated. And then we also did groundwater studies because we knew that with the work around the coal mine, with the power plant, there was potential the groundwater was contaminated. And there's been lawsuits. Sierra Club had sued PNM years ago. So we had a lot of concerns that we wanted to address before we decided to purchase the San Juan Generating Station water systems. Like I mentioned, potential contamination sources, the San Juan River. You can see in the photos there, this is courtesy of USGS, the aerial photos there, the unnamed arroyo, that there's a pretty small drainage area for this that feeds it, so very, very limited ability to contaminate from the surface there, but we were primarily concerned with air quality that could have contaminated, a fallout from exhaust from the generating station. We also looked at the geology in the area with the help of USGS, coal mining, and so we studied all those aspects. And the big takeaway was this is a great, safe water source with how it's been maintained, with the benefits that a reservoir provides over the river. It's better water quality than what's in the river, and that's because a lot of the sediment and the constituents in that sediment, the heavy metals, settle out in the reservoir. So there's a reduction in the total suspended solids. There's a reduction in aluminum, in the total aluminum, reduction in manganese, chromium. You can all see that there's a significant reduction over what's in the river. And what we were concerned most about was dissolved metals coming from the river, coming from the upstream mining, the Gold King mine spill, and just what naturally occurs, as USGS has pointed out. But those dissolved metals are to a low enough level that they can be treated at the water treatment plants, so no concerns there. And then we looked at the new regulations for PFAS and the plastics in our environment that EPA is in the process of putting regulations in place. And all the river and the reservoir samples were below PFAS regulatory limits that have been proposed. So we made, after doing all this analysis, we worked with our project partners, made a decision to purchase these facilities, which includes the intake you see there on the screen, the pumping plant that P&M had been using to pump the water up to Frank G. Willetta Reservoir. There's a pipeline that's about just over 10 years old that feeds from the pipeline to the reservoir. We purchased the dam and reservoir itself and completed that last May. So that's in place, and now we're in the process of incorporating all that into the project. So as you can see there, this is an aerial photo showing how the water is diverted from the intake there. It goes through a sluicing channel where sediment settles out, so it's not being pumped up to the reservoir. Most of the sands, the gravels, those all fall out of the water. We do get some silts and clays because they're suspended, and so those still do get pumped up. But it's a pretty effective job at removing the majority of sediment that goes up to the reservoir. And then there's a return flow for what is not pumped up to the reservoir that goes back to the river immediately. So I've taken that aerial drawing and turned it about 90 degrees. So the river is to the top of the page there. You see the intake. We're adding control gates. We're adding a fish barrier weir. That's similar to what the fish barrier weir is down at the Hogback, if any of you are familiar with that. When P&M operated, they had a grandfather clause. They weren't required to screen for fish, so there was no fish screening. So there was some fish take that occurred with their operations. We looked at both fish screening and a fish barrier weir, and given the effectiveness of the one down to the Hogback, it does two things for us. It will help remove even more sediment than was occurring before, because water will flow over the top of that weir just 4 inches in depth and go to the pumping plant. So it's just the top 4 inches, and the fish are more bottom dwellers. They will not get pulled over that weir, so it should be very effective, as we've seen down the Hogback, in protecting the fish and allowing them to return back to the river. So that fish barrier weir, we're designing it to divert 71 CFS, which is just slightly above what P&M had been diverting for the last 50 years. As I mentioned, it's a 123-foot long weir structure, so it's a concrete structure with a metal plate on top that the water will flow, but just the top 4 inches will flow over that. That will keep most of the sediment on the channel side that goes back to the river. One of the things we've been very concerned about is the drought and climate change. The way the rivers currently operated by Bureau Reclamation with releases from Navajo Reservoir is the minimum flow is typically held around 500 CFS through the middle section of the river between Navajo Reservoir and the Four Corners. But looking at climate change models 40, 50 years out, we are seeing that the drought get exacerbated. It's interesting. The Colorado River Basin, the climate change models are showing that we're going to see hotter, drier weather. Up north, in the Pacific Northwest, they're actually going to see wetter weather. So, but for us, we're very concerned about still being able to divert water, because this is a drinking water supply, when we do have lower water levels in the river. So we're providing adaptability to still divert water as low as 200 CFS in the river. And then one of our jobs is protecting the fish, as I mentioned. So the Colorado pike minnow, the razorback sucker, those are the primary endangered species we're looking to protect. We're designing for low sweeping velocities so that they can't get injured if they do fall into the intake. The flow depth is kept to a minimum level. The gate openings are kept so that we don't have velocities that could injure the fish. And then I mentioned just 4 inches will be going over that weir, so the fish will stay on the channel side. And then here's a photo that we're patterning this fish barrier we're on, and that's the hogback diversion. So very similar concept. On the left is the main channel that's been diverted off the river. This is taken in the winter, so there's no diversion occurring there, but the water flows over the top into the hogback canal. So a lot of work is going on there, and as I mentioned, if you've been driving any of the highways along the San Juan Lateral, you've noticed we've been doing a lot of work. We've got 4 active construction projects, and that's just the Bureau Reclamation. Navajo Nation has their own project building the BBN 9 sublateral towards Crown Point. Gallup's been building pipeline through the city of Gallup that will take water to Navajo communities southeast and west of the city. What's in red there is where we currently have active construction, but everything in blue is in the ground. And the pumping plants associated with those are nearly complete. So we're making a lot of great progress there. We're approximately 60% complete with the San Juan lateral. The Cutter lateral on the east side of the project, as I mentioned, is complete. We've got just that small section of pipeline to the community of Liebrook that's left to tie in. The Navajo Nation's working on that right now, but for over 3 years now, we've been delivering water to over 1,500 homes along that, and replacing, in many cases, the poor groundwater that was supplying those homes. And now we're focused on the area circled in red there, the water treatment plant, the San Juan River intake that I just went over, community connection to Shiprock, and the pipeline from Frank Chihuahua Reservoir to the water treatment plant. That's where our current focus is, design-wise, while we're continuing to construct the project. So we've got some awards for this project, and for me and my team, it's not really about the awards. It's about shining a national spotlight on the need for this project, and so we've got some great press from Engineering News Record. The Cutter Water Treatment Plant was recognized as the best water and environment project in 22, and just getting that out there and folks understanding how big a need there is for this project and the good that will come with it is very important. So here's just a couple of photos. I got many more I could share with you, but I'm running out of time. The pumping plants that are on the San Juan lateral, these are pretty large pumping plants. If you've driven, like I said, along Highway 491, you've noticed around the community of Sheep Springs, there's a brand new pumping plant there that's just about complete. It's very similar to this pumping plant 7. That one is down in the Coyote Canyon area. Pumping plant 4 is the inside of that. That shows you all the equipment that goes into these pumping plants because we're taking water from the low area around the river and pumping it along Highway 491 to all the communities down to the south. And then what's this about? It's about safe drinking water for the Navajo people. It's not about just bringing drinking water to Navajo people. It's ensuring that they have a safe and reliable water supply. It'll provide economic development, job growth opportunities. We've made a lot of great progress, as I mentioned. We're delivering water to folks, but we've still got a lot more work to do on the San Juan lateral. We're targeting 28, 29 timeframe for completion of the San Juan lateral and the initial water deliveries into Navajo communities as well as the city of Gallup. And with that, I'll take any questions. Yes.
It's an awful long way from Shiprock to Gallup. How are you going to keep that water disinfected?
It's a great question. Yeah, that is one of the challenges I didn't go into, but it takes us going to more advanced treatment in the water treatment plant. So disinfection byproducts are a concern, and that's what happens when you any natural organic matter that's dissolved in the water. When you add chlorine to it, it can create a disinfection byproduct if it's allowed to react to it for a long time. So it's important that we remove a lot of that organic matter, and then we'll have chlorine boosting along the pipeline. Every other pumping plant essentially will have the ability to boost chlorine to keep a low chlorine residual. We want to keep as low as possible because we don't want to build up any of those disinfection byproducts, but we do have to keep a chlorine residual to keep the water to safe drinking water act standards and Navajo Nation drinking water standards. Yes.
With the recent settlement that was done in the state of Arizona for the water, is there an interstate agreement or whatever for the water right there that's going to the Window Rock and that area? Is there something like that there? My understanding is the water from the state of New Mexico stays within the state of New Mexico. But with that recent settlement that took place, I was curious about that. If there was any issues or problems that would arise with possibly an interstate agreement that might have be in place. I don't know if that needs to be, or I was kind of concerned about that when I had read that. They did not expand on the effect of the waters in the state of New Mexico and the state of Arizona with that agreement.
So in the agreement in 2009, in the law that Congress authorized, it required an Arizona settlement for us to be able to deliver water into Arizona. And so if there was not an Arizona settlement, unfortunately now there is, it still has to get through Congress, but one of the big hurdles is done. Once there's an Arizona settlement authorized by Congress, we will be able to deliver water to Arizona. All the plans are in place for it, all the authorization is in place once that Arizona settlement is in place. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
Now, when you're running that line, each community, like for example, Shoe Springs, all those is in the jurisdiction of NGOA, right?
Correct.
What are you doing? You're just stubbing out where NGOA is going to take it from there to the communities. Now, how far ahead or how far is the progression of NGOA in developing the water system for each individual homes and so on in each of those communities? Are they going to go with this big water tanks like mapping big,
Yes, great question. Yes, we are working with the Navajo Nation and NTUA. Indian Health Service is also a prime partner in that because Indian Health Service has got the funding in the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. They've got quite a bit of funding to help build pipelines into homes. So we're working closely with Indian Health Service as well as Navajo Nation NTUA because the Navajo Nation is also funding, as you mentioned, we're building the pipeline. Our jurisdiction on building this project is limited to that pipeline. We can't connect all the communities, so we put a T in the line. We're gonna build basically a small building that where we'll monitor the water going to each community. But the Navajo Nation will then be funding and building the community connection into each community. And they've already got one of those projects funded for Nashchitty that they just awarded a construction contract to, and we'll be starting construction on that later this year. They've identified funding for most of the other communities to get water, as well as the state has been helping fund those community connections. So it's taken, after we get our portion of the project built, it takes the Navajo Nation building the infrastructure to connect the community, and then Indian Health Service and NTUA to tie into all those homes. And so, yes, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, partnering to make that happen.
Is there a set number of water that each community is gonna get? For example, are they gonna get 1 million? Is there gonna be a 1 million-gallon tank there, or is it gonna be 250,000-gallon tank, or whatever? I know that Gallup is gonna have, 2 or 3 probably 1 million-gallon tanks that's gonna be sitting up there, and they're gonna get a lot of the water. But how many should the Navajo community, is there a standard that you're gonna deliver from each of those areas that you're talking?
The Navajo communities get roughly 3 times what the city of Gallup's going to get, but there's many more Navajo communities. So the Navajo Nation has made the decisions on how much water goes to each community, and so we've just been building it's really the Navajo Nation's decision on how to get that water into each community and how much water to put into each community. But as I mentioned, with the planning that they've done, it's got supply. We'll have enough supply for at least 40 years, and that's based on how water was being used 2 decades ago nationally. Water conservation's become much better in the last 20 years. We're using roughly 75% of what we used to as citizens in the U.S. And on the Navajo Nation, they're using roughly half of what was being used 2 decades ago. So that water is going to go maybe double what it was projected to. So there should be water for 80 plus years.
Final question, is there gonna be a charge that your reclamation to make run there and stuff when you deliver towards NTUA?
Is there going to be, excuse me, can you repeat that?
Financial charge?
So within the public law, the Navajo Nation included a waiver of their O&M costs. So fees that are the cost of operating and maintaining the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project, once we turn it over to NTUA, this is actually already occurring on the Cutter Lateral where they are operating. They pay up front to operate it, and then the federal government reimburses them through a reimbursement process. So that is also going to be in place on the San Juan Lateral, and there's legislation in Congress that would create a trust fund, if that gets through, that would provide a trust fund for the Navajo Nation to cover the O&M costs for probably a couple decades. Thanks for those questions. Any other questions?
Is that a stainless steel pipeline? Is that true? Is it stainless steel?
It's a steel line. It's not stainless steel. It's got a cement mortar lining on the inside, and that protects the steel from corrosion. So we've got protection on the outside. There's a coating on the outside that protects the pipeline from corrosion. And then on the inside, it's cement mortar lining that protects the pipeline.
And then my other question is, the Cutter Dam Reservoir, are they gonna keep that kind of like a public access area? You may not have an answer to that, but that one road that goes into Cutter is something else, it's a doozy.
Yeah.
Are they going to, like, do they try to keep it a little more private, or is it gonna be like a?
The Navajo Nation BLM maintain those roads. When we've talked to the nation, they kind of do want to keep it private since it is a water supply both for Nappy as well as the Cutter Lateral, but they still, it is beautiful up there, yeah. Any other questions? Thank you. Oh. The Navajo Nation's water rights go back to the treaty in 1868, so they're very senior water rights. And the Navajo Nation could make decisions on taking water away from irrigation to ensure that the people get their drinking water. I would have to look at the City of Gap's water rights, but they're not as senior as the Navajo Nation's. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to welcome our next presenter here, Shara Ragland, from the Bonita Peak Mining District Community Advisory Group. She's passionate about environmental communications, focusing on how interpersonal and interorganizational networks foster social capital and the way this plays in building participant-informed policy. Shara's experience includes college teaching, research, and applied projects with government agencies and nonprofits on topics including genome evolution, recreational use of natural areas, energy policy, and watershed and endangered species management. In Southwest Colorado, her work includes projects promoting communications and collaborative action to foster public confidence, community resilience, and planning for sustainable watersheds, increased outdoor recreation among diverse populations, and hard rock mining remediation and restoration. Her professional training spans the fields of zoology, genetics, biochemistry, and environmental communication. Shara currently serves as chair of the Bonita Peak Mining District Community Advisory Committee and a board member of the Animas Valley Ditch and Water Company. Welcome to the conference, Shara.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. I've been on the Community Advisory Group, or the CAG, that's what I'll call it from here on out probably, for 5 years, and just recently in January, stepped up to be the chair of the CAG. So I'd like to talk first a little bit about the Bonita Peak Mining District. The EPA basically has 3 different goals to improve water quality. That's kind of primary, stabilize source area, and minimize unplanned releases. Think the Gold King mine spill. This is a map that it's a unique site in that most Superfund sites are a single site, but the Bonita Peak Superfund encompasses a number of mines and waste piles, et cetera. And so on this map, which I'll bring back, all the green is Forest Service. The BLM lands are in yellow. You can see there's a lot of private lands, a lot of mining where you see all the different mining underground. And then right here, that's the town of Silverton. So we're going to focus on the headwaters from here on out. So the Bonita Peak Community Advisory Group is a fairly unique group among Superfund community groups in that we have a lot of geologists, former mine supervisors, water hydrology people, retired agency, BLM, Forest Service. We also have city, Silverton and Durango, and La Plata County and San Juan County, Colorado representatives. Our first leader for the first 5 years was Peter Butler, who had also worked with Animas River Stakeholder Group for 25 years before that. So with his retirement from the CAG, we have a large kind of hole that the rest of us have sort of fallen into fill. So we've had some restructuring in the last few months, and we're shifting more to work groups. This is in part because we felt in the first 5 years, we experienced a lot of information dissemination from the EPA, from the agencies. We all were learning a lot, but we weren't necessarily communicating and having much influence in terms of how we were dealing with the EPA. So we're hoping that with the work groups, let's see, we have 3, I'll follow my slides a little bit. Water sampling, Howardsville, and the Gladstone treatment plant. And so, let's see. Yeah, our goals are to communicate early and meaningful, and we also want to focus on that community aspect of the community advisory group, because we're not going to get that from the other agencies. So the first work group that I'll talk about is the CAG water sampling plan. This is led by Sarah Birch, who is the Animas River waterkeeper. And the CAG since 2019 has been sampling, and even before that, we're the only ones that are sampling in this lower region. So most of the EPA sampling and other sampling that happens above the town of Silverton right here. And all of our sampling is below. In these areas, we have 4 areas which you can see with, I'm not sure the arrows are showing up on there, but it's hard to see the little print. But we're going to basically sample 4 times a year based on previous data. And we'll sample 2 times during each of those time periods. A couple of them, it's about a 12-mile round trip hike to get into them. So winter sampling, we take the train up into these lower areas and people ski down to the upper areas. This is right off the road over here. We also have, the picture didn't get in there, but the Howardsville work group. And Howardsville is a site that's about 60 acres that's just beyond Silverton. And it's a site where the EPA is just starting to do remedial actions and figure out what they want to do there. It's a very large, flat area, and it's called, also named the Colorado Gold Fields. So there's probably 40 acres of waste, about 3 to 4 feet thick. It encounters the water table right there by the Animas River on one side, and on the other side, it's bordered by a county road. And so the CAG has just finished reviewing a technical memo from the EPA, and now we're starting to talk to the EPA about what kinds of solutions that will hopefully lead to less contamination in the Animas River at that point. And also, since it's one of the few flat areas close to the town of Silverton, it's also an opportunity for recreation, perhaps water storage, other kinds of uses that the town of Silverton has. So this is the Gladstone treatment. And again, did the picture not come in on that one either? Okay. That's throwing me off a little. That's fine. So this is from data that Peter Butler analyzed in terms of, this is not right at all. Okay, we know that the treatment of Gladstone definitely improves water quality downstream. And so this is a major area that the CAG wants to look at, that EPA wants to look at. And one of the things, what they're doing right now is they're only treating mine waste or water that comes out of the Gold King mine. But we would like to find out if we can treat also effluent from the Red and Bonita mine and other mines in that same valley, and how much that will increase. Cement Creek is one of the major loaders that comes into the Animas River and eventually downstream. So treatment's a really important option, and I don't think we'll be looking at a new treatment plant. The treatment plant that's been there for 5 years is temporary. So there's no permanent solution, and we'll see how much we need to do there. Okay, back on track. Slides, I think. Sorry. I'm missing all my slides. I should have a series of 4 maps that should have come through. Okay. I'll talk a little bit. I've also got it on a stick if you need it. So I had a series of maps that showed what they're doing up there this summer. The first one, while we're seeing if we can get these slides to come in, talks about Gladstone. They're working on the Gold King discharge. They had some maintenance of pipes because they get clogged up pretty easily with the effluent in the pipes, and also the tunnels. This is one of the things that the EPA is doing. The Grand Mogul mine, and I cannot see it on my end. So if you can go back to the EPA activity, can you get back to that one? Yep. Yes, that's the one I'm talking about now. So the little red circles, since I can't see it, I won't point it out, sorry. But the little red circles are what I'm talking about. The Grand Mogul, what they're doing is they're regrading the slope. There's a lot of waste and there's water that runs off over this waste rock. So their CDPHE, which is the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, is doing this work. There's a site-wide repository that they've been working on. It took several years to get that repository. It's just outside of the town of Silverton on Tailings Ponds 4. And what they're mostly doing this summer is stabilizing the road to get up there with the large trucks. They won't start delivering treatment plant waste up there until next year. Next slide. Okay. This is more about, it says characterization, but it's more remedial investigation, which just is a fancy way of saying they're still studying these areas. One of those is that lower circle is just above Silverton. That's the Mayflower tailings. They call it operable unit 2. So they're sampling the surface water, the well water. They're adding more wells to the top and looking at groundwater contamination. They just released a conceptual site model, which the CAG reviewed in January and February, and they're revising that. Then the upper circle shows you drilling. What they're doing is they're drilling from Lake Emma, which is an alpine lake that collapsed a number of years ago, into the mine tunnels below. And so they're trying to determine how water moves through this area. And so that's what they're doing in that upper circle. Then over off on the right, I think that's right, looking at it this way, is the Bandora mine in a small circle. This is Forest Service work. They're putting in a monitoring well and also looking at maintenance and gauging stations. In the Bandora mine, they're also going to move some of the tailings to an on-site repository. In July, we'll have inspections with the EPA, moving towards their 5-year plan. They'll inspect bulkheads, tunnels, et cetera. Next slide. And these are a removal action. Let's see. The 3 things here are the Kohler mine, there's ground support work, bulkhead maintenance. The Anglo-Saxon crib wall, which is a really steep, they need to stabilize that. It's also kind of a historic area. And then the Gold King mine itself, the road has been collapsing outside of the adit there, and so they're stabilizing that. They were afraid that trucks wouldn't make it up and down there. Next slide. It's not just the EPA that's working up there with their contractors. There's also Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service, Department of DRMS, and then Mountain Studies Institute. And so a number of these sites have to do with safety closures and erosion control. There's fen restoration up in the upper arrow that you see. There's a fen that the Mountain Studies Institute is looking to restore. There are some hot spots in the Vermilion Tunnel, and it's just a hot spot that's out. You can just see it as a yellow spot on the ground that they're going to remove that waste from. They're going to, at the Mammoth Tunnel, at the Mammoth Mine, DRMS is restoring a top pond. The lower pond at that site, which is also contaminated, is on private land, so they can't touch it. One of the interesting things in terms of recreation is there is contamination, but they're going to survey that in the Alpine Loop in the campgrounds. And then in Cunningham Gulch, which is the lower blue kind of oblong, they're going to do a beaver dam analog project, which hopefully will be kind of interesting. And then Animas Forks, which is a popular destination for a lot of people to see historic minings. There's also a lot of hot spots and tailings, and they're going to try and figure out what to do there. Next slide. Okay. So what's come up recently, and one of the reasons the CAG is interested in not only looking at remediation, but also restoration, even though that's not the mandate of Superfund, we are that community group and want to see that at least the idea of restoration in the area post-remediation is something that happens in a thoughtful manner. And so recently, the state of Colorado, not that recently in some cases, but has settled for over $7 million for restoration funds. And so they had from Standard Metals Corp. About $415,000, from the Blue T Corp. About $468,000, from Sunnyside Gold, who owned Gold King Mine. They settled in 2021 for 1.6, and then in 2023, they settled with the U.S. Department of Justice for $5 million. And so that's where this $7 million comes from. And the plan is that they have a call for proposals for projects, for restoration projects, which a lot of people are working on, that the first $3.5 million can be distributed starting in September of this year. It likely will take 2 or 3 years for that to start. The other $3.5 million stays in a trust fund with the state of Colorado, and that will be used for subsequent projects that they'll try and start beginning next year. So final slide. Kind of the big picture summary. Our main goal as the CAG is to sort of keep our eye on the ball of water improvements. They've spent over 160 million. We haven't seen a lot of water quality improvements yet, but we hope to, especially with some of the Howardsville and treatment plant work. The EPA is moving from their characterization phase, which is about the second phase in a Superfund process, to we have a couple of cleanup actions going on at this point. And restoration is a hot topic, even though it's not a direct thing that the CAG works with on a routine basis. It's something that we're very involved in with the state of Colorado. And then as a group with these working groups and more communication, we're hoping that we have a voice in how things go through those final stages of selection of remedies, cleanup, and then post-construction. Final slide. Thank you. Any questions? All right.
Estimated that 160 million has been spent. There's been a significant improvement in water quality relative to line drainage. What can the CAG do, especially PhD projects that will improve water quality downstream of Silverton relative to line drainage?
So the question is about the 160 million that's been spent and little seen in water quality improvement, and what can the CAG do to help that along? It's a $160 million question. We hope that through better communication and through being able to see some of these documents, in the past 5 years, it really has been, we get reports on the characterization, the work that's been done in terms of looking at where contamination is, and that's where most of the money has been spent. It has not been spent on actually doing something about that contamination. There have been some projects which have helped, but most of those projects are not on the major loaders in the watershed, which is Cement Creek, which is where the treatment plant is, and also the Howardsville site. There's also a lot of contamination coming out of the tailings ponds where they're putting the repository. So that's why at this point we feel like, and what Peter Butler communicated to the EPA and kind of the subsequent discussions, we really are trying to be more on top of asking those questions that steer the work that's being done towards water quality improvement, and not just moving tailings around because they need to be moved out, but knowing that they're moving, especially in something like Howardsville, that those tailings are being moved to places where they don't have the potential to enter into the Animas River hydrology. Yeah,
Yeah, does that 160 million include operating the treatment plant?
it does.
So there is some benefit to it.
There is some benefit. The problem is that they're treating such a small portion of that particular valley's input to Cement Creek. Cement Creek's still pretty bad. And it's also difficult to treat in the winter up there because of access. Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that big step.
There was one more question on the screen.
Oh,
It just popped up.
oh, okay. Let me see if I can find that here. Anik, can you are you able to see that question?
What is the next CAC meeting and possibly a two?
So what's the next CAG meeting and what? Possibility of two. Oh, the possibility of a tour. So I believe this group has the opportunity to tour tomorrow. If you haven't signed up, I think this is the man you need to see over here, Mark. Tomorrow, the tour is going to take you on the repository site and then on up to Gladstone, and that's being led by Ty Churchwell, who is in the CAG and has been very involved in this for a long time. And the other part of that question was, oh, the next CAG meeting. The next public CAG meeting will probably be in July. We'll hear back from the Howardsville work group, as well as we may have another couple of speakers. In June, we are not meeting because we're having a 5-year plan, starting to look at that. And they're also doing IROD, which is record of decision inspections and things up there. And then our water sampling group is getting the sampling plan finalized. So June is going to be a working month. July we'll have another meeting.
All right, and moving on with our final presentations, our last two presentations of the conference, I'd like to introduce Rob Runkle. He's a research hydrologist with the U.S. Geological Survey's Colorado Water Science Center. Rob joined the USGS after completing his PhD in environmental engineering in 1993 from the University of Colorado. While at the USGS, Rob has conducted numerous studies on the effects of mining on stream water quality. Rob's specific areas of expertise include the use of tracer techniques, synoptic sampling, and reactive transport models to characterize the loading, fate, and transport of constituents in small watersheds. These techniques have been used to study acid mine drainage streams, hyperic zone processes, and nutrient dynamics in streams and rivers throughout the U.S. And you can find more information about Rob at his profile on the USGS. Rob, thank you so much for joining our conference today.
All right, thanks, Mark, and everyone else here. I gave a talk at the very first conference that was held down here after the Gold King in 2016, and haven't been back since, so sorry to be a stranger. But anyway, it's good to be back and see people I met back then and meet some new folks. Thanks to everyone at the facility here. It's been a lot of great food and a great setting for a meeting. Today I'm going to talk about a synoptic study we conducted in 2021. And a synoptic study is a study that's conducted where we sample multiple locations in a watershed. We get the concentration at these various sites, and we're doing all this sampling in one day, basically. Sometimes they're multi-day synoptics, but the one I'm going to talk about today was we sampled multiple sites in a single day. And the idea is that you have concentration at each site, and then you also measure stream flow, and from that you're able to determine the load of the various metals. And the main purpose is to then identify the sources of the different constituents. What's the biggest source of zinc in a particular stream reach, for example? Let's see. Just want to acknowledge a few things here. We had funding for this work. It was a collaborative effort between EPA and the USGS. EPA funded the lab analysis and provided support for sample processing. And then we had our own internal research funds from the USGS Environmental Health Program. And then I work for the Colorado Water Science Center. Johanna Blake is got a lot of spare time on her hands, so she's been helping me out a little bit on this project. And then we had a whole slew of people helping in the field and in lab. All right, so if you turn to page 3 of your program here, there's a little map of this area. And the stream reach I'm going to be talking about is the reach of the Animas right above town in Silverton. Chara mentioned the tailing piles along the Animas, and one of those tailing piles is going to be where they're going to use as a repository for the sludge from the treatment plant. So the stream reach is shown in this plot here. The Mayflower Mill is kind of at the very upstream end of the, let's see, get my, trying to get the laser pointer working here. Just click on that thing. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the river flows from the Mayflower Mill area here, and this is just right below Arastra Gulch. Arastra Gulch comes down from Silver Lake and joins the Animas above the Mayflower Mill. And then as you move downstream, there's a series of tailing piles on the right bank. So the right and left in this talk is going to be from your orientation if you're floating down in a canoe or raft. Right bank is on your right, left bank is on your left. So on the right bank, there's a series of tailing piles. Here's tailing pile 1. Boulder Creek comes down right in between tailing pile 1 and 2. Then there's a small tailing pile known as 3, and then a very large one down here closer to town, tailings pile 4. And this is where the repository is going to be placed. Like I said, during these synoptic studies, we sample many sites. Shown here are the stream sites we've sampled. There's some small blue dots on the map. And then we also sample the various inflows coming into the stream. So we walk the whole stream and decide where to sample. Every surface inflow that has significant conductivity or input of metals, we try to sample. So the right bank inflows are shown as red here, and the left bank inflows are shown in green. So just a quick overview of what I'll be talking about for the next few minutes. A little bit on why this is a really important reach in the Silverton area. I'll show you a few photos moving from upstream to downstream of the various sites of interest. And then we'll look at some of the data, the pH spatially. We're going to take a snapshot basically of water quality at low flow in September and look at the pH and the concentration and compare those to the water quality standards. And then like I said, the main purpose of the synoptic study is to quantify the metal loads, and then based on those metal loads, determine what are the major sources of metals to the stream. So just a little background on the synoptic mass loading studies. Shown on the left is a typical water quality monitoring situation where maybe you have a stream gauge at the bottom of the watershed, and you have a monthly sampling program, and this type of data is really useful for looking at changes in the watershed due to land use changes or climate change or whatever. But it really doesn't tell you about what's going on up in the watershed. Whereas the synoptic study, we're going to sample a number of sites all in the same day. We're going to get flow and concentration at those sites, and then look at the various sources in the watershed. A little more detail on that. We have these various sites going from upstream to downstream. We collect the water quality samples and send those to the lab and get our concentrations. We get the flow at each site either by regular measurement of flow, but in this case we're using a salt tracer, and we get the flow by dilution. But once we have the concentration and flow, we can multiply the two together, and you get a stream load, which is the mass per time. And so if you're on a bridge down here and the load is 5 kilograms per day, that means if you stand on that bridge for a whole day, 5 kilograms of zinc are going to pass your way. So then when we plot that load spatially, we can see where those big load increases are and kind of slice the watershed up into small pieces and identify the major loading areas. An example of that is shown here. This is from Red Mountain Creek near Ouray, Colorado. And in this case, we have a couple of big increases in load that are circled here. And these are sources from various mines along Red Mountain Creek. Now in 2017, I gave a talk at the Mountain Studies Institute, and I talked about some problems with this synoptic approach. And today I'm going to talk about complication number 2, and that's the idea that these loading analyses really don't tell you which side of the stream the metals are coming from. So in this particular case, there was at the time, there was a lot of discussion about this Mayflower Reach and which side of the stream the loads were actually coming from. So this is my little hint to EPA that, yeah, we should go in there and implement some of these techniques and determine definitively which side of the stream things are coming in. And so it took a few years, but in 2021, we went and did just that. So here again is the basic problem. We might have this loading profile. In the case of Red Mountain Creek, it was really obvious. There were mine tunnels that came out on one side, and we knew immediately where it came from. But in general, these loading profiles don't tell you which side of the stream things are coming out of. So what are the possible solutions to this? We can look at the inflow sampling. We can look at the concentrations on the right bank and compare those with the concentrations on the left bank. We can also do something called equal discharge increments. It's a way of sampling that I'll get into here in a few minutes. And then there's also this idea of detecting inflow using temperature. So if you have groundwater inflow, those are typically, the temperature of groundwater is typically pretty constant and pretty cold compared to the river that heats up. So I'll talk a bit today about these fiber optic distributed temperature systems. And basically what you do is you lay a fiber optic cable along both banks of the stream, and they can detect changes in temperature. So if you have a cold inflow from groundwater, you can see that in your fiber optic data. And so if we do that on both sides, we can get an idea of which side the water is coming in. Here's some data from when we looked at this reach years ago in the 1990s. And this is the idea of looking at the inflows. Almost all the plots I show today, by the way, are in terms of some concentration on the y-axis, and then we're going downstream on the x-axis. The data here from the stream is shown, that I'm highlighting now with the pointer. The left bank inflows are circled here, and these are zinc concentrations. And the right bank inflows are shown here. So, and this is a log scale, so these are like 10 times higher on the right bank. So already you have a good feel for where things are coming from. You also have some massive tailing piles on one side, which is a pretty good clue, but anyway. So here's this idea of the equal discharge increments. This is a USGS technique it's been around for a long time, and we employed it during this synoptic study at several sites. So basically what you do is you do a discharge measurement, and you take all that data and determine, you break the transect into thirds. You have a left third, a center third, and a right third, and then you sample at the center of each of those. So instead of having one sample for that site, you have 3, a left, right, and center one, and you can compare those concentrations. Here's some of the temperature stuff. The fiber optic stuff is on the right. I'm not going to talk about it today, but you can also use infrared cameras to detect cold water coming into the system. All right, so this is the meat of the talk here, I guess, with the data from our 2021 study. This particular photo is taken right at the head of the study reach. Araster Creek is coming in just above here on the left bank. Up the right bank here is the Mayflower Mill. It would be right up here on the hillside. And then the water's flowing down towards Silverton. Okay, so why are we doing this study? Why is this important? Shown here is a bar chart of the metal contributions from a study we did in 2012. So this is before the Gold King. A number of sites are shown here that are on Cement Creek. The Red and Bonita area is a big contributor of zinc, for example. At that time, the Gold King water was going into the North Fork of Cement Creek, and that contributes about 40% of the copper that you see downstream of Silverton. So I like to call it the Copper King instead of the Gold King, actually. But anyway, in that study, we found that a good portion of the cadmium and manganese were coming from the upper Animas, and also a fair amount of the zinc. Furthermore, we found in this study that above this study reach, the Animas actually was meeting water quality standards. But then once we got into this reach below Araster Creek, things went above the standards. So a brief description of what we did. First, we did a lot of stream reconnaissance, just basically walking up both sides of the stream, looking for these surface inflows, deciding what we're going to sample. And so we did a synoptic sampling. For the inflows, we found 11 left bank inflows that were important and 19 right bank inflows. As far as the stream goes, there were 23 sites. So these sites this is a 3-kilometer reach. So these sites are maybe, on the order of a couple hundred meters apart. So we're chopping the stream reach into really small segments and looking at the loads coming into those segments. So we typically do these synoptics sampling. We start at the downstream end and just work our way upstream. So we did that at all 23 sites. There's also a concern when you have neutral pH waters that the metal concentrations can actually change over time. So just as a check on that, we sampled 8 sites at the same time. So this is our simultaneous synoptic. And then finally, we did this equal discharge increment sampling at 5 sites. So I'm just going to kind of walk you from the top of the reach to Silverton and go through a few photos here. Like I was saying, in this case, we got our stream flow from our tracer injection, tracer dilution. So this shows the injection site at the very top of the study reach. Then as we just get right downstream from Arastra Gulch, there's this inflow that comes in on the right bank, and you can kind of see the wetted area where it comes in. That inflow has 112 milligrams per liter of zinc, which is quite high, and a pH of 4. If you were to go straight up this hillside, the Mayflower Mill would be sitting right up there. So it's directly below it. We get a little farther down, so we're down about 1,300 meters below about a kilometer below Arastra Gulch. On the right bank, there's a real marshy area there. And I didn't mention it when I had the whole reach up there, but this is kind of an area where they had temporarily stored tailings for a long time. And most of those tailings were removed, but it's hard to really get everything. So there's residual tailings in this general area. And again, high zinc concentrations, relatively low pH. Then we get downstream from there, and there's a little, maybe 200-300 meters where I didn't see any inflows along the right bank. There was no surface water coming in. But there was evidence of during wetter conditions. Keep in mind, we're sampling in September, but we have these evaporative salts. So basically, you have seepage coming into the river right there. But then as you go through the summer, that dries up and it leaves these salt crystals that sit there. And then we also have the residual tailings. And so, you know, like during this study, we did see some input in this general area, but these areas are really critical for rainfall runoff. So years ago, we were doing some work in Silverton, and early in the morning I got a call from EPA, and they're like, "What did you do?" And they had been looking at some of the data from the stream gauge, and the pH had dropped and the conductivity had gone up. And I said, "I didn't do anything, it just rained." And these are the kind of events that can be really kind of short, but really important as far as water quality goes. And then one of the big features of this area is known as the red seep. It enters along the right bank, and you can see this on Google Earth. You can see it from space, basically. And it's a really, you know, the iron really catches your eye. As we'll see in a few minutes, it wasn't that important for the loading, but it is a feature of interest. And then once we get below tailing pile 4, there's a campground area down there along the right bank, and there's a series of ponds and inflows that we sampled. Shown here are a couple of the ponds. These have a little lower zinc concentrations than some of these seeps that we saw, but it's a lot of water, as you can see, and a lot of acidic water. pH 3.8 is the first pond, pH 3.4 is the second. Here's just some more farther downstream. So as far as the data that we have a number of plots here of pH and zinc and manganese. The stream concentrations that we're showing here from the 23 sites are shown in blue. The right bank inflows are shown in red. So as you can see here, a lot of these inflows are acidic, and whereas the left bank inflows shown in green are more similar to the stream, around pH, you know, between pH 7 and 8 or so in general. Here's the zinc data, just looking at the stream data without the inflows. The solid blue points are from our main synoptic, and then this simultaneous synoptic, when we sampled all 8 sites, is shown as these open circles. And you can see there's a little bit of difference, but in general, zinc goes up no matter how you look at it in this reach. And then the aquatic life standard is shown in red. So we're at the upstream end of the study reach here. We're just kind of right at the edge of the aquatic life standard, and then as we proceed down the reach, there's this gradual increase in zinc concentration where we're quite a ways above the standard. Looking at zinc inflows, again, just like with the pH, the right bank was more acidic. The right bank has much higher zinc concentrations, whereas the left bank zinc concentrations are relatively low. Many of them are below the stream concentration. So now we can, we've just been looking at the concentration data, which a lot of people have, but a lot of times you don't have the flow data to go with it. But in this case, we can multiply our flow times our concentration and get the metal load, how much metal is passing each site, and then we can look at this. So how does this work? So for example, we can quantify how much load is coming from upstream of the study reach. Our most upstream samples around 100. At the very end, we're up at 400. So that's 25%. 100 divided by 400, 25%. That's this bar here. And then we start to look at changes in the segment. So this segment that has a Rastra Gulch, it increases about 45 load units. You divide the 45 by the 400, we got 11%. And so we do that all the way downstream, and you can see there's some small loads here, but then we get downstream by that campground area I mentioned and those ponds, then the load really starts to take off and really steepen. So like we were just talking about, we can quantify what's coming in above the study reach. We've got our Astra Gulch, it's a pretty big tributary. It's pretty obvious it's coming from the left bank in that case. But the other 60% of the load, these bars downstream here, we got a fairly good idea it's coming from the right side, but we want to look at things closer. So first, just like we saw with the zinc, we can plot our inflow concentrations. Here we're looking at manganese concentrations. And manganese is pretty interesting because every single left bank inflow has a lower concentration in the stream. So any of that water would act to dilute things, whereas all the right bank water has much higher concentrations. And you'll note that the stream concentration is increasing along here. So these right bank concentrations are definitely having an effect on things. Then our, let's see. Oh, crap. All right. And then we have our results from our equal discharge increments. So this is where we're sampling along the right part of the stream, left part of the stream, and the center. And if we just focus on the right, shown in red, and the green shown in left, the left shown in green, you can see that the right bank concentrations are a little bit higher at some of these sites. The right bank concentration is quite a bit higher once we get below that red seep, which isn't surprising. You can literally see the stuff coming in, so you'd expect things to be higher on the right bank. But this one upstream of the red seep is pretty interesting because that's the area where I showed you where those salts are on the bank. And we don't have any inflows coming in there, but you can see that the right sample is higher than the left. So this is just for sulfate is what I'm showing you, but we have this for zinc and we have this for cadmium and so forth. So if we tabulate all this stuff and look at where the right sample is greater than the left and the left sample is greater than the right, we can do that for cadmium, copper, manganese, etc. And so you can see all these cases where the right sample is higher than the left. So again, this is more evidence that the right bank is a big player here. And like I was saying, this one sampling site above the red seep, where we think we have groundwater inflow, the right was higher for everything. Below the red seep, pretty much the same. That would be expected, but this one here, this groundwater inflow is really telling us something as far as I can tell. And then another thing that I haven't mentioned so far, but somebody had it in their talk the other day, this idea of using principal component analysis, and that helps you kind of consider all this data and which inflows are like each other. So if we plot this up, all these left bank inflows kind of plot together, and the interesting thing is there's a couple fairly clean right bank inflows, and those plot along with the left bank ones. Then we have a lot of our right bank inflows in the 7,000 meter range down by those ponds in the campground, and those kind of plot together. The red seep is here. That marshy cattail area where we had the residual tailings is there. So we need to do some more work on this and refine this, but this kind of tells us a lot about the samples from the right versus the left bank. Another area where we need to do a little bit more work is interpreting the temperature data. We had a fiber optic line along each side of the stream, and I apologize that the colors are flipped here. The right bank is in green in this case. Well, we need to go back through this data. One of the things that's happening here is that some of these large stars, which represent supposedly a lot of cold water coming in from groundwater, I think some of those are actually our surface inflows. This whole hillside is pretty shaded, and this water would be cool. And there's some Blair Gulch, for example, comes in. And so we want to kind of put that data aside and just look at the stars that are associated with groundwater. So getting back to our main question, the left and right bank, we have all these different techniques to look at left versus right bank. And if we throw in the kitchen sink, I think we can kind of agree that the loading's coming from the right bank. You know, this isn't terribly surprising given the tailing piles up there. And then the other thing is just the geology. This stretch of the Animas is very similar to Red Mountain Creek in that it runs along the edge of the caldera. And so inflows coming from the inside of the caldera tend to have high concentrations, and inflows coming from the outside the caldera tend to have lower concentrations. So in a way, this kitchen sink just represents common sense. So now that we have all those methods, we can kind of look at these. We now know that a lot of these smaller inputs are most likely coming from the right bank. As we get down towards those pond areas, there's one pretty obvious one coming from the right bank, shown here. But we also know that some of this other loading is coming from the right bank. And then just to summarize our loads, this is a table. Hopefully you can see that pretty well. And then the different metals are listed across the top here. The largest source for each metal is shown by subreach. So these are from upstream to downstream order. So we're getting a lot of copper, for example, towards the top of the study reach. In the case of, and then the second highest loading area is shown in yellow. So in the case of zinc here, you can see the largest loading area is down by those ponds in the campground area, and that's where this loading profile really takes off. So to conclude, cadmium and zinc meet the standards above Araster Creek, but then they go above the standard once you get downstream into the study reach. A lot of the other metals actually meet the standards in our September 2021 data. And a lot of this loading is coming from the right bank. A couple coming attractions. We have a data release that includes all these, all the loads and concentration and flow data that I just presented. And I just got comments back on that. It should be out shortly. And then is there, you know, does this warrant future work? And I just reviewed the conceptual site model for this unit known as OU2 of the Superfund site and provided some comments for EPA. And as you read through the conceptual site model, it's clear that there's still questions, especially associated with the area below tailings pile 4. So we could do some further analysis in that area. One of the techniques I didn't talk about is this idea of using stream bank wells to identify right bank versus left bank flow. And we could do some of that in this groundwater reach above the red seep as well. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer questions and hang out for a while. I don't have to take off for a while. So thank you, and look forward to talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, so since you're sampling during base flow, do you think the spatial distribution of zinc loads, whether it be left and right bank or the river, would you expect it to change during, let's say, snow melt or during storm events?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that happens in this reach is that during the snowmelt, the very first part of the snowmelt period where the hydrograph's just starting to rise, you get a big flush, and that's from like those salts that have been deposited on the stream bed and the residual tailings. And then as the hydrograph goes up farther, it's more of a dilution effect, things get diluted. But there's a real, you know, short period of time where things get, the highest concentrations actually happen. And, you know, just from you don't see those precipitates on the evaporites on the left bank. So pretty sure that same thing's going on at that time as well. You know, I'm not sure if we did on this study or not, but typically, I mean, we've done many studies like this, and you don't, unless you have some really sensitive metals, you don't see mercury in the water column. You'll see it in the sediments if you take sediment samples, but I don't think it's a big concern in the water itself. Yeah.
I was wondering if you could put your web address back up there, or do you have a business card with that?
Yeah, it's just my last name at usgs.gov. That works.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you so much, Rob. So while we're queuing up the slides for our final presenter here, I'll introduce them. Claudia Trueblood serves as Science Coordinator at the New Mexico Environment Department. As part of her duties, she coordinates environmental reviews and comment letters to proposed rulings, provides support on matters that overlap across NMED bureaus, and assists on multiple internal and external working groups. She also supports the work of the Uranium Mine Reclamation Program and serves as a delegate of Secretary James Kenney on the New Mexico Mining Commission. She holds a BS in Economics, an MA in Communication Studies, and a PhD in Water Science.
Good afternoon. I guess it is now. My name is Claudia Trueblood, and I work with the New Mexico Environment Department under the Office of Strategic Initiatives. We are a team of 6, more or less. We have support from other people like interns, so it's expanding a little over the summer. So we do different projects under the office, and one of those is the uranium mine and mill site reclamation. Is throughout New Mexico. However, for today, I'm going to focus on the San Juan County. I'm going to give a brief overview of the project and some background, how it started, and well, you can guess why, right? And within that, I will talk very briefly about the strategic plan that we have for the project, and I will focus on a couple of initiatives that are the dashboard and the job training program. So the background, many of you might have heard that in 2022, the New Mexico legislature passed House Bill 164 that outlines the plans and the goals of the cleanup of uranium mine and mill sites in New Mexico. And within that House bill, the New Mexico Environment Department, for short NMED, and the Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resource Department, EMNR for short, were given the authority to address the cleanup of those sites and provide technical support as well as regulatory framework for the reclamation efforts. So it requires a strong collaboration among many different agencies. I'm going to have my cheat sheet here because there are so many, I don't want to miss anybody. They have done a lot of work and they deserve the credit. So of course, MNERD and NMED are 2 of those state agencies. We also have the Cultural Affairs Department, the Indian Affairs Department, the Department of Economic Development, Workforce Solutions. There is also a transportation department, fish and game and fish, as well as the Department of Health. So, although not a department, but a big unit, is the Office of the State Engineer. So it's a huge collaboration and requires a lot of effort and coordination. We're also partnering with educational institutions, in particular San Juan College, and communities around the state that are affected by uranium mining legacy contamination. So the strategic plan is a living tool, pretty much. It's actually pretty big, but it outlines what we are supposed to do and specific goals of the project. So I have mentioned just a few of them, but of course, coordination with different agencies is one of the big goals. The other one is to involve communities and keep them updated and informed and engaged, and not just be external agents. The other one is to keep one of the legislative committees informed, which is the Radioactive and Hazardous Materials Committee, which has started this effort. There is an opportunity to create a job training, and I will talk about it later. Secure funding, which is key for the sustainable efforts of the cleanup, as well as developing different tools for the project. So as you can see, there are many challenges as well as opportunities of this project and this effort. So some of the challenges are related to the lack of information there is for the specific sites. So that's one of our main and current efforts. The other one is the complexity of the regulatory environment. So there are many different players here that regulate, some at the federal level, like the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. There is also the Department of Energy, specifically the Legacy Management Office, so that's another unit. Another one is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, so there is another one. And I forgot to say, from EPA, we have 2 different regions, and then there are the tribes who are self-regulated, and they are other agents that play a part, and in the state, MNERD and the New Mexico Environment Department. There is mixed media contamination. There might be contamination of the air, the soil, the groundwater, or the surface water, or a mix of some of those or all of them. There are the split ownership rights, so there might be lands that, sites that are part in private property or in tribal property, or they are managed by the federal government or the state government, so it's pretty complex. The other one is there are different techniques that were used for extracting uranium mining, so that complicates the case. When we address each specific site, then the technical aspects need to be considered, and the reclamation needs to match whatever was used as extraction techniques. There is lack of potential responsible parties, so the responsibility is to assess all the abandoned uranium mines in the state, and then specifically to address the cleanup of those that are neglected. And those are the ones that do not have a responsible party or fall within any of the efforts of cleanup at the moment, at least within a framework of tribal responsibilities or state or federal or private. And obviously, there are many community concerns related to the safety and health of the members of the community. So that plays a huge part in the effort. There are also opportunities, right, to collaborate with all those that I mentioned, plus the education institutions, establish some training programs that potentially could not just help the environment and the health of the people around those communities or in those communities, but also provide a way to support families with new jobs that will be created with this effort, and support companies in the state that are already engaged with the cleanup efforts but don't have the workforce for it. So a few of the current efforts, one I mentioned is inventorying those sites, right? And after we inventory them, we take a trip to scope the site and do assessments, and that takes a very long time. There are many. The other one is related to job training, and I am going to talk about it. Another portion is the regulatory framework, because when they are not responsible parties, then there is no regulatory framework at the moment to address the cleanup, and then sustainable funds for cleanup. So in January of this year, the New Mexico Environment Department launched what is called the dashboard, and it's a central repository of information for those uranium mine and mill sites in the state. So the idea with the dashboard is to be able to have one place where all the information is there, to have transparency in terms of the cleanup efforts or where they are in the process, and that can be accessible to the public and is interactive, as I said before. So I encourage you to try it, not maybe at this moment, but soon enough, so you can play with it. And I will show some features of the site. The other part is that we will update the website regularly as information becomes available. So it's supposed to be pretty current. So this is a kind of a partial snapshot of the dashboard. So there is another part, which is the map legend, that I will show you in a moment. But in a snapshot, you could see that there are 261 abandoned uranium mines in the state of New Mexico and 8 mills. So you can see the location of them, and you can actually go to each one of them. So the New Mexico Environment Department and EMNER were authorized by the House bill to take care of the cleanup of at least the neglected sites. So of the 261 abandoned uranium mines, there are about half that do not have clear status. So it might be that the reclamation is in progress or not, or there is no information about them. And about 50 of those that are neglected, those are the ones that we are inventorying at the moment. So the other part that you see, and it's a continuous thing, I just have to partition it because of the slide space, but you will see the map legend, and you can see there the level of complexity as well of the different agents involved and categories of mines and sites for mill sites. Now, narrowing down to San Juan County, there are about 50 mines and 1 mill. So when you go to the website, you could see that there is a table of mines, so you can click there on the tab, and it will give you that, which is very small, I realize that. So then I just took the headings of that table so you could see a little better what kinds of things you could see there. So there are the general things of the name and the location and things of that sort. There is also the status of the reclamation, when the reclamation might have started, all sorts of information for each one of those mines. So I encourage you to go there and look at all the information that we have available. So if we were to go, for example, to the only mill that you could see, we have there in the dashboard in the San Juan County is the Shiprock Mill. And within that, if you click now, in this case, not the table of mines, but the table of mills, then you have another set of information that is like it shows kind of like on this side, right? And it has all the specifications, and in this case, there are a couple of links that you could access. One is more details about the Shiprock mill site, and they are at the NMED website. And then if you go a little farther, a little farther, then you go to a link that is to the Department of Energy, the Legacy Management Office. And in this case, the Shiprock mill site is a disposal site. So DOE, the Department of Energy, does monitoring and long-term care of that facility and of the materials that were secure. So those are just a few examples of the kinds of things you could see on the dashboard. Then relating to the job training program is one of the biggest efforts aside from the dashboard and the framework is the regulatory framework is to be able to provide the necessary workforce, trained workforce for those that are going to be engaged in the cleanup efforts. And for that, all those agencies that I mentioned at the beginning, plus San Juan College, have met for about a year and a half or so and consulted with more than 20 industry partners to design a curriculum that could help with the job training program. So this is aimed at people from different backgrounds, any age, as well as maybe workforce that was displaced from other energy-related efforts or that want to upskill. So some of the workshops that will be provided are related to both safety, so OSHA kind of trainings, and mapping, Office, like Microsoft Office, soft skills, the commercial driving license, forklift certification. So a lot of different opportunities will be included in the training program. And it's a relatively short training program. It will be 6 to 8 weeks long. And the plan is moving along, so hopefully it could be launched in the last quarter of this year. So that's the plan. And that's it. It's pretty much a short summary of what we are doing. Thanks.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe this is written in the strategic plan. I'm curious if you have an estimate of how much work there is to be done to clean up all of these sites, whether that's number of jobs, number of years, dollars, just kind of like high level. What are you looking at?
Yeah, that's one estimate that the Economic Development Department did. So in terms of how much investment will be done for how many jobs will be produced. But it's really hard to, I know it's a high level, I understand that, but there are 261 sites and every one of them have a specific requirements for the cleanup. So what I can tell you is that this will take years, like many, many years, probably more than our lifetime. So that's one. The good thing is that with the assessments, we can see how closer we are, at least with some of them. Some of the mines had some safeguarding structures put in place, like closing the shafts of the mines, or maybe doing some fencing, or maybe doing some signage and other things that will prevent, immediate hazards. But then the trick comes with the keeping in place the materials or the relocation of them. So that can take many years because of the analysis that has to be done, and also how the community feels about it, and if they have to be transported, then the communities along the road. I know that it's not exactly what you asked, but it is hard to estimate because it depends on each one. It also depends on if the mines have a responsible party or they don't, right? Or if they qualify as Superfund with funds from the federal government, or from a settlement, like in the case of the Navajo Nation, they receive about $40 million from a settlement from what is called now the Tronox settlement to address those cleanup efforts. But it is very pricey, especially because the assessments have to be done by professional teams, and NMD doesn't have the capacity, so it has to be done with contracts. So as we move forward, there will be more press releases issued with updates, and on the dashboard you could see the progress, but it's going to take years. The good thing also is that it started. Right, it had started in New Mexico years back, and it got stalled, and now it's back on the minds and sites, and hopefully awareness of everybody and interest to truly address this. So the legislature has been behind it and is very eager to see progress. So. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.